call the meeting of the Fairport Industrial Development Agency to order. Is anyone here for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the minutes and ratification of the actions from January 26th meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. Any questions? Comment? Hearing none. We'll vote. Aye. Aye. Excellent. Let's move on to the financial reports and resolution 2026-02.
So I've reviewed this month's bills and I make a motion to approve it, as well as the journal entries.
I would second that. Just welcome clarification on the, as part of the discussion that might follow here, clarification on the final payment.
Escrow payment.
1550.
Yeah, so when the cannery development happened, you may recall if you were part of this board, our office owned a portion of the parking lot and the developer wanted to purchase a portion of the parking lot. We entered into an agreement to sell a portion of it. We retained some spots in the front. And as part of the agreement, we created an escrow account where they would do a certain amount of work in the parking lot, and we held those funds until the work was completed. Upon audit this year, they inquired, why do you still have these escrow dollars? Was the work completed? We reached out to the developer. They have completed the work. They did provide required documentation, so we released the escrow funds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And a nice clean second.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Kelly. Looking at the cash investments, P&L. Any questions or comment?
I would just make a note that last month there was a question about negative NOI. We talked about timing of payments. Those payments are received. Now you'll see that is reflected. Also, question for the board, the way that these financials are structured, you'll see our year-to-date budget and our January actuals, all in dollar amounts. Is there any desire to see like a variance between from like a percentage perspective? So the question around NOI, you can see that in dollars, but how far off might we be from the tracking from a budget perspective? If everything is clear the way it is, that's great. But sometimes when I'm looking at them, understanding where we are versus where we said we would be needs a little extra processing.
I usually just eyeball it, and then if I usually just eyeball it. It could be interesting on the year to date, like not the monthly.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's because we talked about these cash flows
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I mean, but even I probably wouldn't find it useful till like month 6. So.
That makes sense. So maybe for the quarterly P&L.
That works.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moving on to the executive director's report.
So I have a number of items. Many of these items span all 3 of our agencies, but I won't repeat that we're doing them all 3 times. So bear with me for IDA. First is software evaluations and updates. We're in a relatively slow time from an external activities perspective, so we use this time to evaluate administrative projects. A few things that we're evaluating. One is our payroll software, and that is furthest down the path. We've had a high level of frustration, in particular from the administrator of the payroll system with paychecks. They are, the system is challenging, the service is lacking, and the cost is ever increasing. So we solicited another quote from an payroll company called Benecare. The service experience is positive. I have used Benecare, Gina has used Benecare. Their overall customer service rating is positive. Their cost is significantly lower. So our plan is to move to Benecare from paychecks, barring any concern or questions from the board. So that's where we're at with Benecare. We would make that transition at the end of the quarter to keep reporting as clean as possible. Any questions? Great. Not as far down the path is QuickBooks. We will continue to use QuickBooks, but we right now are on a desktop version of QuickBooks model, and they're pushing hard to move to the cloud version of QuickBooks. You have to pay every year anyway, and right now we're using a single license desktop version. I'll just say we could do that more specifically and securely with migrating to the cloud. So we're investigating the cost and plan to continue that investigation. We aren't there yet, but ultimately, had discussions with Gina, our bookkeeper. She's very comfortable there. It will give us additional access. Right now, you can only get to it right here. But stay tuned on that one. We don't have final quote from that yet.
Do you expect the cost to go up?
I expect the cost to stay the same because they have made it ever more restrictive to continue on your desktop version. You have to buy your license every year now. So it's essentially about the same with less individual access. The next thing that we're looking at, I don't know how familiar this board is with our loan tracking software. It's called Portfolio, and it's really great from a build loan schedules perspective and managing amortization models and all of those things. And that's really what it's good for. It's not a great CRM tool, and we don't have a really easy way to manage all of our different projects and information. A lot of stuff lives in email and documents, and some stuff is in Portfolio, and it's clear that perhaps we had tried to use that for that in the past, but we're looking at a better solution for that. We've had a couple of demos. Some are amazing in the economic development world, but they come with that price tag. We found one that is much more affordable, still in the economic development realm, for a tenth of that price, around $1,200 a year. We're still in the finalization of review with that agency, but our plan would be to try out that easier, lighter version. We will still keep Portfolio. In looking at the market, there just aren't any tools that we could find that do that loan amortization modeling and management, and we really do need that. Portfolio is very affordable, a few $100s a year. It's okay to keep it, but we can't make it do something that it isn't designed to do. The last thing, even though we're not going to move forward, we've had a lot of conversations around IT services. So we did an evaluation of external IT provider and what would that look like. And in the end, my recommendation would be not to make that change at this time based on the interconnectivity of so much of what we do with the village, even beyond just this particular thing, but we do a lot of cost sharing and enjoy a lot of economy of scale in that partnership, and pulling one part out of that could disrupt other things that perhaps we're not ready to take on. So, and we do get we get service. And I'll say that a like provider quoted us almost the same as what we're paying for with the village directly. So, so we're going to park that effort and stick with where we're at. An IT update, though, is that the village email domain has changed again. And since we're sticking with them, our email domain is changing again. So we're now at fairportny.gov. We were fairportny.com. We migrated to villageoffairportny.gov. And now we have migrated again to fairportny.gov. So that's official. We'll have new business cards and hopefully never change again. Any questions on any of the software stuff?
Just broadly, are we looking at, like, with the first one that you're closest to moving forward with, multi-year agreement? Is it a single year agreement?
We are looking at just a single year agreement with Bennett-Care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they offer multiple years? Or do you like the idea of having a kind of an entree to the change and then looking at a longer term agreement?
I haven't asked them about a longer term agreement, but we can do that.
It may be a way to lower the cost, as long as we're comfortable with the change software.
Mm-hmm.
It
Okay.
makes sense to do the honeymoon period of 12 months and make sure everybody's comfortable with it first.
Okay, we can ask about that. Okay, I'll try to cruise through the rest of these. The Dozier Funeral Home, I think I have an extra letter in there, at 76 South Main. If you are not familiar, it is next to what was the former Crystal Picks. It's currently vacant and has been on the market for quite some time. The great news is that the buyer of 74, former Crystal Picks, has the property under contract, and they don't have any close date, but that buyer has decided to acquire the property next door, the funeral home.
Do we have any idea what they plan to use that space for?
He has some ideas. The gentleman's name is Brian Mayu. He stopped by to talk about his plans a week or so ago. He doesn't have any firm plans yet. He acquired it because he had acquired the property next door. He saw it sit vacant for a long time. He felt that it was a good investment and it was important to him because it's now next to a property that he's owned. He has some ideas, potentially mixed use. I don't know if you're familiar with the property, but the second floor already is a residential apartment. So either mixed use with redoing the apartment and converting the rest to office, or full office. But he's going to come to our board meeting in March to introduce himself to the board and to talk about his ideas and to ask what ideas you might have, and to really just get, more acquainted with our community here. So it won't stay vacant forever. Yay. Last week, Amy and I attended the New York State Economic Development Conference in Albany. It was a great networking opportunity. There were IDAs and economic development agencies from across the state. There was a keynote address from Hope Knight, who's the head of Empire State Development. And overall, there were a few key themes from New York State from an investment and focus perspective. Some of the most relevant to us is a program called Express, which is focused on reducing red tape from a building and development perspective. You might have heard the "Let Them Build" slogan out there already. And as part of that, they are focusing on reform of seeker. So the intention, and they don't really have any specific details on what the reforms will be right now, is a call for ideas and feedback and questions about what are the challenges communities have with seeker and other restrictions around building. So if there are specific thoughts or experiences from the board or from the village, it would be great to share those, and then we can forward those back to the governor's office through the Economic Development Council. But they hope to be able to create more standardization, focus on if things have been previously disturbed, to provide some maybe a more streamlined path through the process, and overall reduce the time required for things that are perhaps predictable and regular. But stay tuned on that. Also a big focus on childcare and a real push for universal pre-K across the state, and then expanding that to childcare incentives overall for childcare businesses and development of childcare businesses. Housing is a big focus. The village of Fairport has already become a pro-housing community, but there will be more of a focus on being a pro-housing community in obtaining funds and support from New York State. And power, it was also a big focus on the ability to continue to attract businesses requires us to reevaluate our ability to provide power for those businesses. So those are the key themes that were talked about at the conference. Again, good opportunities to connect regionally and with even our local economic development community. The next thing here on this list is we are talking with the village. We've been approached on collaboration on activating the festival site at Liftbridge Lane West. So right now that has Adirondack chairs and lights and a nice archway, but not a lot scheduled happens there, and there's a desire to do that. So we're talking with the village manager and sharing ideas on how we can support that effort. Stay tuned. Questions? Okay. Quick update on 15.5 Liftbridge Lane West. That's the old Machete building. And that property has come up a number of times as just wondering what's happening. And the issue was there were some challenges with the village around certain permits and agreements. But the update is that those have all been resolved per the village. Everything is approved, and Liftbridge Lane West is free to proceed with leasing or selling the building. However they proceed, they are no longer working through those details with the village. All of those issues have been resolved. We don't know what's going to happen yet to it, but it's not in limbo because of outstanding issues with the village.
It's not listed for
It was listed for sale and for lease.
currently?
I don't know if that listing is active,
Gotcha.
but we have heard that there is a potential buyer and also a potential leasee. Maybe they're the same people. Not sure about that. Iron Smoke Whiskey. The update is that their closing will be delayed until March. They are still working through issues with the seller. They aren't able to come to an agreement on them yet. Hackett's Landing has a couple of new tenants going in. One of them we'll talk about later in LDC. But overall, the reason that I wanted to put this on the radar is that the uses are a little different than what was there before. One is a coffee shop and one is potentially a bar restaurant. So the other uses were more inside the building, and these are going to be a little more potentially. I don't think Elisa, I'm not sure if Elisa, I'm sure Elisa's not signed with the bar. But overall, what the discussion is around the use of the patio and the land around, since that land is owned by OCED, and since these uses will be a little different, we're going to do some research to make sure we have a clear understanding of what's allowed, who has control, where, and stay tuned for that. But potentially we might enter into a similar agreement that as we had at with My Wine and Cheese for their use of the patio around the building. But again, we just need to get a more clear understanding of what space they're going to use, what space we control, what space we already control. So I'm going to work with Ed on that. Stay tuned. Questions? Thoughts? Good. Okay, so the last update is just an update on our podcast. I know you guys are all diligent listeners and subscribers. Thank you so much for your support. We have had a great response to the podcast. Personally, everywhere I go and everyone I talk to, it's the first thing they say is, "We saw your podcast. I saw your podcast." So that's been exciting. We did put together some actual statistics, so you can see that we are getting some traction here. These first two columns on the page in your packet where it lists episode downloads and YouTube, you add those together, and those are views for one episode. So YouTube counts its views outside of all the other ones. So you can see each episode gets they get more views the longer it's out there, because they're really kind of evergreen. So the ones that have been out there longer have more views. And the other great thing it's done is given us a lot of visibility on LinkedIn to drive attention from the business community. And that has effectively doubled our post impressions between the time we launched the podcast or before we launched the podcast to the following months after the podcast. So a lot of great anecdotal community feedback and some good stats to support our effort. So we have one more episode to record. It is on public art, and that will wrap up this series. Then we'll hear about the DRI, and we'll see where we take this project from there. Great.
Great job.
Thank you.
John, was there any discussion at the economic conference about DRI and when they're expecting to release the winners?
There was not any discussion around that, and the people that we asked anecdotally also very curious, but no one seemed to have any answers. It does seem like the governor's office and ESD are doing a number of announcements right now, if you're paying attention to their press, to talk about the investments that they're making in New York State and different programs. So perhaps because they have such a backlog of announcements, I think every day in the news there for the last few weeks, there's been an announcement about dollars in investment in New York State, that that maybe the DRI is kind of at the end of those announcements. So stay tuned. I feel like I've said that 10 times today. I'm gonna stop saying stay tuned.
Yeah, anecdotally, I ran into to one of our village trustees a week ago Sunday, and they were familiar with past projects, and they said basically from now through the first week of March, we're in a window where no one should be surprised to get the news, but any time in that window would be normal. So we're in the window, but
And no announcements have been made anywhere.
We check every hour of every day.
it's exciting.
Yeah.
We're in the game.
Okay.
The way you said that you're checking, you don't think we wouldn't get a call before a
We
press release goes out?
Yeah, they will notify the village. So when they reached out to notify us that we were selected for an interview, that was by an email to the mayor. So if it's the same way, I expect that will be the path. That concludes my executive director report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fun stuff. And yeah, the podcast's been, I think it's entertaining, and it's also doing what we want done in regards to creating something to content to put out there.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thanks.
Thanks for all the work. You too, Amy.
Just, solid, informative discussions that, offer the opportunity for, provoke thought, people consider the issues and the challenges versus just the plain thought.
Yeah.
And having the kind of third parties that you all bring in, I think really shows how much care and attention the village and these boards are putting on the thoughts that we make, right? It's not just a couple actors we're really thoughtfully considering. I think it's been great.
Great, thanks.
All right, moving on to old business. We've got the auditor renewal proposal.
Yes, so at the end of our audit in December, we talked about the agreement with EFPR and that we are due for a renewal, and agreed that our desire would be to stay with EFPR if that makes sense, and ask them to submit a proposal to us for 1 year and 5 years, and that is in your packet. So if you were on this board when EFPR came on board, they've been on board for a number of years, 5 years now. They had a very competitive bid even at the time. They've stayed true to that over that 5 years. They've had price adjustments over that period that haven't impacted us, but now we are facing a bit of an adjustment to better align with their time investment and a little also reflection of the market currently. So there is a proposed increase. I'm just going to talk about the IDA. If we certainly can talk about the full total scope if we want to, but the IDA proposal, or the cost of our IDA audit for 2025, was $5,700. The proposed for 1 year, the 1 year extension, is $7,300. Some of the factors in that overall for all agencies, they budget a certain amount of hours and they consistently spend more of those hours. So part of the adjustment is to better reflect the time that they're spending. And the second is, you can see that the actual rate per hour is relatively low. They target an average rate of around $150 an hour on an engagement, and we're just around $60 an hour on this engagement. So still a real value, and our desire would be to move forward. They did also provide 5-year pricing as requested. The 5-year pricing is a 5% increase year over year.
Would I be right in understanding that if we went forward with a 5-year deal, we'd be locked into that 5% pricing year over year? But if we went with the 1 year, they would just submit a new proposal in 27?
Yes. So then if their pricing went up by 9% the next year, we might be subject to that increase or be faced with going back to market.
And then, was I right in understanding what you said in the prior agreement for about 5 years? Did they have flat rates for us over that period of time? Okay. they did
I
go up.
don't know.
Got it.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was. No, but it was probably, I remember it being 3 to 5%. I don't know, Kevin, if you remember, but I'm pretty sure the proposal escalated each year.
Yeah, they did have escalators in it. It's something nominal, in that 3 to 5 range we're talking about. Yeah. I haven't run these numbers or anything, but is this like a 20% increase over last year?
It's more than that.
It's more than that. It's probably
It's close to 30.
30.
Well, I guess I did the math on the blended,
It's
so.
over 30%. But it also looks like they underestimated hours, and each one of the agencies was about 30% under the number of hours. For example, IDA, they budgeted for 70 hours, but they're spending about 95. The urban renewal, they budgeted 130, because of course they had Section 8 in there, and they're actually spending about 194. So, I mean, their estimates and the amount of time were significantly lower than their spending. And I hope that they're able to keep within their actual hours moving forward for the next 5 years. That's where we stand. These new numbers.
Well, they don't bill us on an hourly rate.
Right, but I mean, it all goes into it when they consider how much they're charging us.
Yeah.
They certainly did, it does, yes, it does. When we talked about the justification for the increase, the hour differential and the price per hour, and those two really are a factor of each other. And obviously I wasn't here at the time, so I don't know if it was perceived as a great value, but their original pricing was very competitive. So those three things bring us back to this number. I had a conversation with Gina. I know that we were with Bonadio prior, and she of course has a number of clients that are still with that firm. This pricing from her perspective still very competitive, and it would be unlikely, or this isn't out of the realm of still value in the market from her perspective.
I recall when we switched that there was a lot of, I don't know how to describe it, the comfort level seemed to rise after we got through the first year with the new agency. And at the time, everyone was very happy, whether it was the customer service or how they approached the work. I recall audit week used to be, very stressful for everyone, and it did not seem to be that way in the last few years. Kevin, agree?
Oh, yeah, that's totally agree. But I kind of, as we're talking about this getting in with competitive pricing, I think that's the same thing with the previous firm. We looked at their pricing, it was competitive, but as soon as the term of their contract was up, it was a pretty significant jump in the money that they were proposing. So it sounds like a kind of a similar situation here.
Good market trend.
Yeah.
No, but I remember being a significant jump too.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly, if the conversation with Gina replaces this, then disregard it. But before we lock into a 5-year agreement, it probably makes sense to explore at least one or two options. Again, if you feel good about the conversation you've had with her familiarity.
Wouldn't we have to put that out to bid, or request for proposals, I guess is the word?
I took a look at the procurement policy. I think this is a professional service, and it doesn't require a competitive bid. I have that policy here if anyone wants to take a look at
It
it.
is not, but as what historically we've done is solicit 3 proposals. I mean, when we do decide to put something out, not a renewal necessarily, but we don't do this every time a renewal comes up on a professional services contract. But if we are thinking about making a change, then we would solicit proposals from at least 3 firms.
So if they're still market rate and we're thrilled with the work that they do,
Mhm.
if they're market rate and we're on the fence in regards to that we're still getting good value, then it makes sense to
Mhm.
evaluate.
We are thrilled with the work that they do. I will do a little more legwork to validate market rate before we finalize any agreement.
Makes sense. Especially a 5-year one. If we're looking
Yeah.
at that and capping the increases annually by committing,
Mhm.
it makes sense to
Yeah.
explore.
I
Okay.
would suggest if the historical experience is that at the end of the 5-year period, you see a big jump, it does make sense if we're satisfied with the services to lock in.
I mean, over 5 years, they're looking at, for 2026, for the 3 organizations, they're looking at 27.3. And then in 2030, they're only looking at 33.1. That's only $1,000 up a year. I don't think there's much you can buy for an extra $1,000 a year going forward,
5% is pretty
Yeah.
reasonable.
I would be in favor of renewing this contract for a 5-year period.
That's a motion, I seconded.
All in favor?
Do you want to explore it further?
Do I want to?
I mean,
No.
to me, it seems like I'm not interfacing with them personally. I guess I would defer to the audit committee. Second the motion and.
What
Yeah.
I like about this, as opposed to, again, our past experience with previous auditors, is that they've shown us the data, right? They've
Yeah.
shown the hourly, how many hours they put in. There's reasoning behind it. But I think if any of us think about what the employment market has looked like over the past 5 years,
Sure.
it seems like normal inflation rates of, cost of doing business is so much more. So if Gina says that this is within, I trust her judgment as well, and I think it's reasonable.
When does their contract expire?
Well, their contract expired at the end of the engagement they just completed.
Okay. And then we would, so we would need somebody before our fiscal year ends,
Yes.
correct? And quite a bit before that as well, right? So we would have, if we decide to go out for proposals, this is February, so it would happen in March. We would then go through the process, of finding people to solicit and then also to get proposals in a reasonable amount of time and then review those proposals and then interview candidates. I'm kind of worried about the timing of that is where I'm going with it. It is a tedious process if you remember from the last time we did this. It can be tedious.
And it was easier when we had Ken because he knew everything. I support keeping them on, looking carefully in 5 years, reminding them at year 9 that, you've been here a long time, and I don't know if we can keep it. Was there some rule about the need to switch, or at least the need to investigate alternatives along the way?
Which partner?
Yeah, that's the partner within the agency
Oh,
that
or
they
partner,
would rotate
okay.
around at a certain
Yep.
point.
Within.
All right.
But it can stay within the agency that we've engaged, yeah.
And they told us that in
Yeah.
October.
I think they do a good job when they come and they, speak. When we have our audit committee meetings and they're going through it with us prior to the board meeting, I think they do a good job. They explain it well to the non-fiscally educated. I don't know, the accounting behind all that and all. I get it when we're in the room, and I get it because they explain it well, which is important. And they.
And somebody talked about the learning curve that
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned once we got through that first year,
Drops.
that, went well. So there's definitely a huge learning curve too, because we are unique. They don't have another client that is us. We're very unique, and so there's value into knowing us, knowing our personnel, having the comfortable working relationships with the there's a lot of value in that. So
There's also a lot of value in the fact that our staff is comfortable with them and that, when we switched agencies, there was that angst, of course, but then it was quite quickly an easier process for everyone during, in prepping for audit and getting through it. There's value in that.
Sure.
Yes, I'm nodding on behalf of myself and, of course, my good partner, Jennifer Sturgis. And the Section 8 agency is a whole other independent, complicated item. And Jennifer is very confident in EFPR and strongly feels that retention is the right decision.
It's great news.
We just lost Heather for a second, but
She's back.
prepared to vote. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a motion on the table. Do we want to vote?
Yeah, it's good discussion. It sounds like everybody that's closest to it is happy. So,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Great.
All right. Any new business?
Real quick, did we just move forward with a 5-year agreement then?
Yes.
I thought that was the motion.
Perfect.
Is there any new business? Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do urban renewal.
Urban renewal. I'd like to call the order of the February 17th, 2026 meeting of the Fairport Urban Renewal Agency. Seeing no visitors here for public comment, I'll move on to approval of the minutes and ratification of our actions from the January 26th, 2026.
Move approval?
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move on to our financial reports. Resolution, pay the bills, resolution 2026-02.
I have reviewed the bills and I make a motion to approve their payment, as well as adjourn journal entries.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Section 8 housing payments, resolution 2026-02.
I reviewed those bills and the journal entries, and I would recommend moving their payment.
I'll second that. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Cash balances and financials. Is there anything that you want to specifically point out, John?
No, I didn't have anything specifically to point out, except that similar to the discussion around financials in the view, there are times when we project a loss, so sometimes you're going to see a negative NOI or net income. That's not where we're at right now, but just to keep that in mind.
Any questions or concerns? Okay. Moving on to loan status.
Most loans are showing current. We do have one that tends to just lag on the receipt of payment date, and the short month, it's even shorter for that perspective. So that one did not make it in time.
Front porch grants.
No updates for front porch grant.
And Jen is here to, so let's talk about section 8 housing report. This month I was just going through my head, I didn't write it down, but there were a lot of complicated issues this month with participants. And that, so much so that I had to get involved with a lot of the day-to-day stuff with some of the landlords and the participants, which I really can't go into discussion, but they were fairly complicated and potentially could erupt if you don't squash that immediately. So a lot of time was spent this month for some reason on, sometimes months are just like that. It was very busy, kind of like tenant or participant related stuff this month, in the office, out of the office. So that was a large part of my month, really. The Rose Hollow, so moving on to my board report, the Rose Hollow is definitely going under back contract for 3-1. For 7 units out of the 12. And as I've said before, when those the 5 that are not going under contract now, as they become vacant and eligible for a tenant to move in, as long as a participant or as long as a tenant moves in who's qualified for the Section 8 program, that unit will be added to the HAP contract at any time during the life of the contract, with no need to put it out to bid or no other competitive, a need for competitive bid. It's just upon request of the landlord. That's a HUD regulation. So that's moving along. Everything should work out with that. All the units are past inspection that need to be, and we're set. I was approached this, actually I'll skip down to the Landlord Expo. I really enjoyed this. Coordinated Care Services, Inc. Had a Landlord Expo this month, and we were invited to speak, and it was wonderful. It really was a really great event. So we got to speak about our landlord retention program. We made connections. We learned about programs that I never knew existed with Passstone. So now we have a new partnership with Passstone, informal, where participants can actually receive additional moving costs and funding from Passstone if they're moving from a higher tier of what do I want to say? Moving from moving from the city to an area like this that can offer them expanded housing opportunities with expanded living situations. So if they're moving from one tier to another and it's increasing in tier, they rate it based on the amendment or the area and what we have to offer, education, economics, all that. They could be eligible for extra funding. So I thought it was a really great time. I enjoyed myself greatly, and I met a lot of people that I actually had never met before. The reason I skipped to that is because as I was sitting there writing out what I was going to say, I usually wing it, but Raquel from the Pines approached me and asked if we'd be willing to consider taking over the project that was originally awarded to us back in April, I think, of May of 2024. HUD and the Pines now Evergreen East asked us to administer 85 vouchers at the facility. We thought at the time We did not feel that it was something that we wanted to take on at that time. So they worked with RHA, started a contract with RHA. RHA is now pulled out of the contract, and HUD has now approached me again, along with Raquel from the Pines, to see if we'd be willing to take this on. I don't have a ton of information yet. The next step is for HUD to inform me of what kind of actions need to take place. This would be additional vouchers. This would not be something that we would absorb with our current amount of awarded vouchers of $497. It would actually increase our voucher pool to $582. And it would also, we would be given additional funding. It would not come from our existing HAP funds. And it would yield admin fees of an additional, at the rate right now, $102,000 a year. I don't know what we're, first of all, I'll be waiting for HUD to let me know more information about the number of vouchers. That seems to always be the critical piece here, is 85 is too much and too little, as was our reason for denying it last, or rejecting that proposal last time. Is 85 is a lot, but it's not enough for me to hire somebody. And can Sheila absorb that? Can Linda absorb that? If it was 500, I would have taken it. It's 85. That's just too much, too little. So the number of vouchers that are actually up, I'm waiting to hear about that. I would like to consider it. Once I know that information, I'll bring it back to the board and we would discuss it. Right now, the cons really are, well, the benefits are that a local agency would be running it as opposed to RHA. We would look really good for HUD. They were pretty much begging. They wanted us to do it in the first place because this exactly was going to happen. RHA doesn't. They told us it's been a year and a half, a long time, and they've gotten so far in and gotten nowhere, which is not something I'm, I don't know what happened, but they're now bringing it back to us.
Do we have any idea why RHA is going up?
They're saying their capacity is not where it needs to be to handle them.
They being Evergreen, or they being
RHA.
RHA?
They were, yes. So I think personally, we had the same issue with, a similar issue with the Northfield. We awarded them vouchers, but I had to retract it, as you know, because we were in a shortfall. This is a different story. So that happened, and I think RHA found out that they could retract contracts, and they did it. Nobody ever does that. So I think they retracted it because they never wanted to do it in the first place.
And these are not project-based vouchers.
Yeah,
They are.
project-based. But they're
So they're assigned to the units, not to a person. So right now, it's not like there's 85 people waiting in limbo for an admin, for like an agency that they're supposed to be working with to administer their vouchers.
Their 85 units are, the Pines has such a varied mix of funding sources. Every type of funding source goes away, basically, in a nutshell, or terminates. They have to do what's called a conversion action. That means that because they were previously funded under a HUD program that's now ended, you can't just leave those people sitting there. So that's where the debate comes in. Is my experience always is, whenever the time that program ended, those are the tenants who would be eligible for a project-based voucher. Their attorney is saying something different, where they're saying, no, whoever lives there now gets it. So that's why I'm waiting to hear from HUD to confirm that the way I've always done in the past is the way it should be done.
So
There
this
are people living
scenario,
there, we would put them on the program.
This scenario is atypical and sounds a little messy, and you're waiting for HUD to sort that out and maybe as
I've done
a
them.
factor in the decision. I'm sure there are other questions, but we talked about this a little bit. But if you could talk a little more about the additional admin fees, you get $102,000. You would not hire someone because you can't hire someone for that amount, or just, yeah, talk a little more about that.
Okay, so right now, our voucher count is down, it's in like 400, right? So right now, we would clearly have the capacity because we're down on our voucher side. I could manipulate that and keep that lower with that, with these coming in behind it to keep our admin fees. So I don't, with our, if I was to be able to do this today, we'd be able to handle it. Full leased, I don't think so. If we were fully using our 497 vouchers, we would not be able to handle 85 more without employing a second part-timer at least.
So if you got to the point where you were using 497 vouchers and you had taken on these 85, you would hire another person and you could afford to do that?
Correct. Or I manage our capacity through not leasing new vouchers to get to 497. I can always do it that way too.
Yeah,
So I can.
I don't like that approach. I mean, that just kind of goes against what we're about.
Yeah, I figured. So I guess if we're in a holding pair until I actually know the number of vouchers. 85 is probably too much for us to, for Sheila to, for us to absorb.
Yeah, and I know it's not about the individuals, but Sheila and Linda are different, right? They do different work. So just because Linda could take more on, and even if they're like, could Sheila take more on because she's doing like a whole higher level of work, and Linda only has to do like this much more of that 85.
Correct. I would probably have to.
How about Paul? This is the one I kind of remember when he was caught up, spending so much of his time at the mines for the
Yes.
to get out. And I mean, we know what they have been through with their maintenance or lack thereof, and the problems that have arisen there. I mean, that almost sounds like that could be a full-time job in itself.
Correct. So that's the cons, is really all about capacity. But before I determine that, we really need to know what number of vouchers we're looking at. But I would think that if it's the higher number, Kevin, I agree. I mean, the Pines has been a lot of work. I knew it was gonna be when I came here from RHA. And it's not something we work very hard to make sure that things run smoothly there. And it would be tough at 85, I think. But we'll see. I'll report back when I know. I reached out to HUD again.
Does taking these 85 give us any extra emphasis or need to serve our clients?
Does it better?
Will Evergreen step up a little bit? I don't know the answer to that.
No.
Does it give us leverage, is what you mean?
Yeah, I guess that's good.
No. Makes us look good with HUD. But
Well, I think makes us look good in the community as well. I mean, we're a pro-housing community now, and there's some pride in that. I would, you'll get the number and then
Yep,
we'll
I will
make
report back
decisions, but
next month.
there's a part of me that's like, just because we're not at capacity now, doesn't mean we should really think about how we get to capacity.
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree with Kevin and Fairport. So I will report back and let you know.
Just for my education, other than capacity, were there any cons, and I'm not minimizing the impact of capacity, but were there any other cons that you were thinking about when this came up before?
Capacity with office space, capacity with staff.
Okay.
The increase in issues that will definitely happen. Our association with those problems in the community. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thanks.
It's hard to say that without,
Yeah, that took a lot of your time as well.
yeah. Oh, yeah. We also had undergone a significant, when I first got here, the Pines approached us about a different conversion. They have different programs. This one was a big one. And we did I probably don't even remember. If anyone does, I'd be shocked. We did all of the legwork and all of it. And right before the HAP contract was in place, so we did the tenant interviews, we did all their income qualifications. We took a chance up front and did that, which is what an agency like ours should do, knowing it's a risk somewhat to do that work ahead of time, but you got to do it. So we did all the inspections, and at the 11th hour, they pulled out of the contract. And it was very easy for them to do that. That's also something I consider too, is how easy it was for them to pull out of the contract that we had done so much work on before. I don't even know if you remember that, but that was very devastating to me.
Of course, now there's totally different people there. Right?
The other thing is, it depends on the conversion action. HUD has different rules for different conversion actions, which is what this would be. Sometimes you have to go find the 40 people. Say there's 80 people, only 40 still live there, who lived there at the time of the conversion action. You have to go find the other 40 people in the community somewhere. You got to try at least, and show HUD that you tried to reach the people who were eligible for a voucher. It gets really complicated.
You're giving me pause to even bring this
Yes.
up and suggest this, but another nugget to think about maybe is, so you said like HUD was begging for us to take this on, but if 85 doesn't make sense for us,
Right.
and again, you give me pause to even say this, but like potentially we come back to them and say, we'll take this if you can also lump in X, Y, or Z other facility where there would be a larger component, assuming that 85 is all of the PBVs for Evergreen. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Yes, so as you know, we have a cap on the number of PBVs we can have. This is exempt from that cap. It's exempt from all that. It doesn't impact our regular cap. This is a conversion action, and it's very, it's intricate. But
So you probably already thought about this, but like maybe it's if they have a strong desire to have us take this on, but this in its current size doesn't fit.
right,
And it doesn't, what I'm suggesting or bringing to thought is not going to solve the capacity problem or the office space problem. But that number doesn't make sense, but they want us to take this on, and maybe there's another project that we could also take on that gets us to a
correct.
full-time
Correct.
higher.
You're actually very, very accurate in that, because there are other vouchers there that we could take,
Okay.
that could be worked out like that. So
And we'd have other
that's
problems
actually
to
a very
solve,
good
but-
observation, actually. Yes, that is possible.
Does any of this work lend itself to work from home?
Yeah,
If we hired somebody and they were,
I put them at the Pines, actually.
you'd have them work at the Pines and they could provide us the office space.
That's how we
The
discussed
office
it
space
before.
problem
Yeah.
goes away.
They would have to function out of that, most likely, if we were actually going to do this and had that significantly more amount of vouchers, sure. We already had done that in the earlier phase of a different conversion, that the staff would be located there. That's another thing, is part-time. Say I have a part-time, they split their workspace with Paul. There's a million different things.
There's no workspace in the existing office, even split with Paul. There's just no more room for any people in the existing office. And I will say, the Section 8 customer base is a high-touch, in-person group. You probably already know that, but they want to show up and talk to you. So they will.
And that's local. They walk right up. So the foot traffic through here will increase. And that's all about the capacity that I'm talking about. Is can we handle it? So it really needs to be really, really carefully weighed when I find out the numbers.
That's good.
That's about it. That's thought that would be shorter than that.
Well, with this need, do we have the ability to, if, you know, like Kevin said, you know, or you said, I'm sorry, you increase the number to make it, you know, is this an opportunity for you to essentially design it how you think it could work best and put the, you know, your thumb on them to give it to you?
I mean, if they're that, I don't wanna say desperate, but if they have nobody else to do it, they're gonna award it to somebody. And
Who else,
say-
who else would, I mean,
They're gonna pick one of us. And
Yeah,
they're
but
not
if you're
gonna
both
pick our
going like
kid.
not it, what happens?
I know, what if,
You just shove it on you?
Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
so if we're gonna have to take it eventually.
I think
We
so.
should at least try and bargain it to our advantage, and if we,
Agree.
and if, you know, the idea of putting one of our people in the Pines, you know, maybe we put them someplace where they're on their own and not mixed in with the evergreen people for pro and for con. There's lots of issues beyond our work with their clientele that we don't need to be a part of, you know. We work out of the little community center over there, off of Whitney, you know.
And I understand the if there's foot traffic, that's probably the best place to be. Also, we don't have a village rep here tonight, but also this pro housing community is owned by the community. I
Mhm.
mean, to me, there's also a case to be made to ask for the village to find us additional space if staffing capacity is needed in-house.
I'm sure the mayor will hear that request directly. So, great.
I will have much more to come, but I wanted to let you know that was going on.
use your leverage.
How quickly does this have to come to resolution?
Please, it's been with RHA since 2024.
Okay.
It's like, you know, it's not imminent. It'll definitely wait for another board meeting or 2 or 3.
No, I mean, I did, yeah, what I didn't know was.
It's not at all imminent. I've heard nothing from HUD in 2 weeks about it. And that's the next, she specifically, she meaning my, the director, said that they were looking into some things about the type of conversion action, so that would determine how many vouchers there are. So I'll let you know. You know, I love this stuff, but I also go, God, oh. I can't anymore.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, Jen.
All right, thank you guys so much.
All right. Now we're to old business. Back to the auditor renewal proposal. We have to go on that again.
I don't know if we need to approve the renewal of the contract for this agency, perhaps?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve
I
the,
made it. Yep.
all right. I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any new business? I'll take a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next up is the LDC. I'd like to call to order the February 17th, 2026 meeting of the Fairport Local Development Corporation. As we have no visitors, we won't be having any public comment. We'll move on to approval of the minutes and ratification of our actions on January 26th, 2026.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to our financial reports. Take on resolution 2026-02, authorization payment of bills.
So I reviewed the bills and I would make a motion to approve. Just on the cover sheet to note, there was an additional invoice that's not reported here, but I reviewed $58 for a Hodgson Russ bill that was pending from last month. So I make a motion to approve it along with the journal entries.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
take a look at the cash balances and financials now. Status report. Anything you want to add, Jonna?
The only thing, I'm sure you'll notice, the first loan, 60201, is paid off, so we're going to mark that as paid. It'll be removed from the report moving forward.
Looks like. Are we having an executive session?
We are.
We are.
I'm not in the.
We'll move on to the side program, grant program.
Yes, so we paid Creative Rage Turning Point, and that showed up on our payment resolutions. The update, though, we have a grant application. So that is for a tenant moving into Packett's Landing, 11 South Main Street. That's the main building. They will be occupying the space that was formerly Mac of All Trades, and they're going to combine the front space here with some back space that's a little more canal facing. I think Mac might have used that actually for storage or something back there. But their project is focused on opening up the canal facing side of the building, making the windows bigger, increasing the, or making the doors, installing glass doors so they're more attractive, and moving toward the overall intention for that property owner to reorient the backside of the building as if it was really facing our second Main Street, the canal. So this project is right in line with that. Their application is clean. They provided estimates, 2 estimates for the work they're proposing. The work fits specifically into the details of the grant for windows and door installation or repair. The project, they provided some pictures of what that will look like. So on the bottom half of the application pictures, you can see their glass door proposals and their bigger window cutout, and they put some pictures of having some chairs and tables out there. So overall, this project is in line with the intention of the sign and facade grant. It meets the requirement, and I am recommending it for approval. Comments?
The DRI initiative includes a project from Packett's Landing to do exactly this kind of work. So are we, and I'm not advocating one way or the other, I think it's a point of discussion. Are we better off waiting until we know if we are get the DRI grant and having this project paid for out of DRI money as opposed to coming out of our facade funding?
So you're right that there is an application or a project in that application for this type of work. I had a conversation with the property owner, not the tenant, to advise that if they do this work now, they could be potentially disqualifying themselves from the DRI funds. It's possible that this ground floor work could be looked separately and differently than the second and third story work of installing balconies, but that I think is actually a decision for the DRI committee and not us to say, did you start the project or not start the project? But I did say that this kind of seems like potentially starting the project. So they're aware they could be disqualifying themselves from the DRI funds. My impression is, so I think that's a fair estimation, but this tenant is signing a lease right now. No DRI project will be started within the next 18 or 24 months. So I would suspect that whether they get our grant funding, I can't say whether they will move forward or not, but a DRI opportunity, whether we know in the next few weeks or not, for them to actually do the work is far down the path from when they are hoping to do the work.
Kind of figure all those decisions are, having a proposal in the queue doesn't necessarily mean you'll be funded. I think
Correct.
It's gonna be a long process to get
Yeah.
to those decisions that the Swan isn't going to be waiting for.
Yeah.
Because they're probably going to be open by spring.
Yes.
There are other projects that we know that the owner is looking at that would involve similar kind of work. So would they be coming in back and asking for another, if there were a second place to go in, I think I mentioned it earlier, the possibilities that somebody, a bar or restaurant is looking at it. Would that also, would they be coming back looking for facade grant for that? Any idea?
Potentially, but just to be clear, this application is not from the owner, it's from the tenant. So are we saying that?
Would the next tenant know that this is something that's happening there? Then would we be better served to put together, you know, if this is all coming, put together a package deal or a, I don't know, some sort of set aside, whatever, you know, specifically for that. Because as we know, he is aggressive, he wants to, there's a lot of things he wants to do there. And if we're kind of dealing with it piecemeal, should we be looking at some kind of different package to offer, you know, even if it's outside the DRI?
Can you just educate me on something?
Sure.
When we have given these grants in the past, are they typically given to the property owner or the tenant?
They could be given to the property owner or the tenant.
Okay.
So the tenant can apply with the permission of the property owner, and the property owner has signed off on this.
Yeah.
They couldn't apply without the permission of the property owner.
Right.
So an example of that might be a recent grant we did at the B side, where the tenant was the operator of the B side. They don't own the building, but they got the building owner to approve the work that was done. But our check went to the tenant, and we presumed the tenant paid for the installation of their door. But another recent facade grant was for Millstone Block, and that was to the property owner, and he was doing work across the whole facade, not just for one space, the whole building. So in this scenario, it looks like this work is proposed for just Winter Swan space, and the tenant is Winter Swan. I understand what Kevin is saying, and we do expect that there is more work happening there. Jordan shared that even in his, when he came to our meeting last month. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I was just, to me, this is, to Kevin's point, I think distinct from a kind of a freestanding building, and that you have multiple tenants in a single building. I was just trying to understand how that did it.
And we've talked about, you know, what about the facade improvement grant? Let's see how it goes. Let's talk about it in May, what do we want to do? But I think this is a fact that we'll have to consider. You know, will there be, is this, to use Jennifer's term, project-based, you know, money that we need to set aside, project-based money for facade improvements for Hackett's Landing?
I also suppose I wonder if doing it piecemeal. If offering a proposal to do something as a more omnibus package for multiple tenants, or kind of a bigger picture thing, offers a potential cost savings to the owner or not, in terms of like it's a larger project. I don't know. I also consistency of what the design and the timing looks like, as opposed to it being done piecemeal, where like a part of the building is getting a significant facade change and the rest of the building continues to look a certain way.
Okay.
But how do we, the project, I get where, a decision on the DRI is imminent, whether it's yes or no. And the Swan doesn't have anything to do with the opening of a bar in the other building.
Correct.
Despite the fact that they're both gonna face the canal, which is nice. And how do we hold up funding, which is available because we're offering it now? I mean, we could make a decision that this is the last grant and we close it on February 28th. I mean, not advocating for that, but we've been talking about what are we gonna do next, So this program as it is now will end at some point. May end before the bar gets his act together. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's a conundrum, Kevin.
Well,
I don't know how to fix it.
This, if in a vacuum, this is doing something with a property that I think we've talked about would be great to be done. Opening that side of that building up to more canal-friendly access. This approaching Jordan and having a conversation about a bigger picture project there, I think is wise. But if a tenant is paying for this project, I'm sure that's totally fine with the property owner.
Yeah, I do. And maybe I'll ask Amy to briefly add something here. It's not the only application that we received from Jordan in relation to packets, and there is some work that he is contemplating around the hardscape to expand on the opening of the backside, but it was not like this. That required more review and was not ready for the review of this board. So we are not presenting it here, but to the point of this discussion, if we were doing it in a vacuum, you might make one decision. Do you want to add anything over there?
No, I would say it's important to consider this one separately because it is the tenant and they're paying, and
Yeah.
then it has really nothing to do with the property owner except that it aligns with what he's looking to do too. And he's probably like, sweet.
Yeah.
I always have been, I don't know if this is what you were getting at, Kevin, but like the idea of like, hey, I'm going to do a ton of upgrades to this property over the next 2-3 years. Well, you're going to like submit a grant application to us every time you get about like $25,000 of the work and call it project one, or how many times can you submit? But it's always at your discretion. So it's not like the guarantee. And even if it meets all of the things, to your point, we might close it. We might need to direct funds elsewhere or make different choices. So I would say I agree with what John is saying. But we just want this.
So there is work that the property owner is contemplating, and we have said we don't know that fits this program. But this application is separate for the tenant. Are they related? Yes, they are both focused on the orientation of the building and on the canal.
Does it make sense to hold this application for 1 month? And have a
hoping to complete
conversation?
the work by April 15th. So I don't know that is their favorite idea, but
Maybe they want to start March 1st.
I suspect it's in their business plan to have this open orientation.
For the coffee shop, yes, yeah, separate from like the space. Yes.
So it's also like, it's not like they've already opened and make this, it's different.
If the property owner's signing off on this too, then likely move that aligns with the vision, the broader vision that we're talking about. Yeah, I guess.
He's looking to do, if you take the lowest bid on each of these little projects, he's looking to spend about 23 grand, for which he would receive
Only 10.
10,000. So essentially, we're paying about 40%, 45% of it for him.
Is a couple more things. Is, you kind of talked about the no zone block building and the difference with the landlord doing it. It was consistency. They bought all the windows from the same vendor. They had all the installation done by the same vendor. All the construction work was done by the same contractor. And so you had consistency throughout. Now, are we opening the door to something that, well, this guy did this, but I want mine to be different? And do we want consistency within a singular project, or is it okay if things are different there? So that's one point. But my issue, I guess, is on this whole thing is it just feels like because of this, we should have a plan. And I'm a little leery of going into this without a plan, knowing what's going to happen next and what can we do to kind of manage this. And I'm not saying don't fund it, but we need to have some kind of assurances as to how things are going to progress. Okay, if we pass this, what's going to happen next? What can we do to assure that that we don't have somebody knocking on our door every month saying, give me $10,000, give me $10,000, give me $10,000. We just need to have a plan. And he's moving fast, and I get that, and it's that's good in a lot of ways. But we don't want to get stuck here without a plan. That's my whole point.
Is now are we, a way to make a plan, or at least enforce a plan, is to change the program.
From a design standpoint, I think we asked the question, is this going to be a prototype? Is this going to be what the first floor, the ground canal level side is going to be, as your different tenants come in that you've got, and you work out deals that who's going to pay for the leasehold improvements? In this case, it's the tenant. So is that always going to be the case? And what kind of design consistency might there be? And then, some of this is going to go before the planning board, I would suspect, or need to go.
I don't know, does it need to go before the planning board to change the windows and?
No, but if at a certain point, it's an interesting question of whether it implicates the whole, do you get to over 25% of the change in value of the building as a result of it? So if it's being done on a piecemeal basis or not, at a certain point, I would think it would implicate it. Right, isn't that this?
Have we talked to the property owners for these grant applications to this level in the past?
I can't think of one where there has been improvements going across, that we've dealt with individually, like take a Village Landing. I can't think of an instance where we have given money in any of our programs to individual tenants or shop owners. We can't think of one.
Well, not through this program, but we've funded the gym, and we've funded the rustic taco. Yes, those are different programs. Yes.
For improvements, those were to start out with volumes.
I mean, and again, educate me, because I don't know context, but is there a way to ask for additional information and get some information that would be useful for us without delaying Winter Swan if the ultimate decision is we would want to go for? Like, what would that look like? What would be the information we would want? It sounds like the questions are about overall design consistency in the building, this being part of like a larger plan, understanding eventually, but if it involves planning board involvement.
We can move with contingencies.
Okay.
To answer your question,
Yeah.
we can do that. It seems like there's variables here that, I'm not trying to slow the swan down,
Right.
but there's, I always envisioned the enhancements to that property coming from the developer that purchased it. Yes. So like my previous comment, still, I stand on that. I wrestle with, because it's not a vacuum that we're in.
Well,
If we were totally see what they're trying to do and love what they're trying to do, to me, it hits our grant on the nose. It is the facade facing the canal that we all want to build out. There's
Would
just
it help
variables.
you to know that the Winter Swan folks have been working very closely with the ownership group? So it is my understanding, based on the look of this application and the second application that we're referencing that will come to light down the road once we work through some potential issues, they're formatted very similar. You can tell that they were working together to make, so as far as like design consistencies, my gut is saying that they're not going rogue, like with, the property owner is 100% on board with their concept, if that helps.
but it would be good to know from the property owner that this is, he's
Yeah,
got some schematic
definitively.
that can show us how it's gonna look across the bottom of that building, and this is the first step. But it's interesting, because you're right, this is the first time we've seen something coming from Packett's Landing to truly make significant facade changes. Yeah. As we look forward, our grant opportunities like this for businesses, business and property owners, as this proposal or program evolves, we need to think again about these three packets, Box Factory and Village Landing, about what could possibly come at us, and how would the process, it's got to be different.
I think that's right. I
And
think
we
that
didn't think that way, I guess. Interesting.
the question of a multi-tenant, single property owner building to me is factually distinct.
And
Of the unique
single
questions that it poses
owner,
about.
the VC.
Yeah.
We've seen that with the shedding. It's worked. Private facilities.
I hope just
I'm
explain.
I'm gonna play the devil's advocate, or the dissenting voice, and say a window and a door and a couple other windows, not a big deal. They're not changing the siding, they're not putting up brick instead of siding. And even if you look at the picture, I'm looking at pictures, but before the glass boat, if you look at the buildings, each of the three buildings that face the canal, it seems that they all have different frontage anyways. So, do we want to say, well, your frontage needs to look like the building that's already seems to have been improved to the west? Do we want to get that, in the weeds that much? I don't know. I don't consider this a whole big redesign.
Fair point.
So my understanding now that next month, Jordan Morgenstern is coming to us to ask for a facade grant for the next project.
No, I don't, I can't say that is, I don't know. We have received another application, and we do a level of review at the office to say, would I come and recommend this to the board? And I'm not at that point. I don't know if it will ever come. Need to better understand it myself before I can answer that.
But my question is, he submitted something and saying this is what I'm looking at doing. Is that your
Yes. Yeah.
And has he indicated facade be asking us for a facade grant to assist in that?
Yes,
So are we talking about a $10,000 grant to support this?
yes. The question is, does the work qualify? It's not like this. And first pass, there's a reason you're not seeing it right now.
Right, we've done windows and doors.
Yes,
We've
this
done a lot of
is
windows
clear
doors with
and,
this.
and
And awnings and, you know, yeah.
And, you know, if he came at us with a facade grant to improve, you know, all of the ground floor or however the canal side is going to look at, our grants max at $10,000.
Right.
And if he's replacing all the windows and all the doors and chooses to add new siding or, you know, front look to it, our commitment is still only $10,000. Just like we did the machete, or not, millstone block, sorry. Kevin, what do you think?
I think we don't have a plan. And I mean, because this is not the yoga studio, right?
no, it's
The
max.
yoga studio was?
Is that what the bar's going in, where wine and cheese used to be?
No, we're
Yoga 170.
Yoga 170, but no project is for that space yet. This this project, Winter Swan, is going into the old MAC of all trade space in the main building at 11 South Main that is next to Village Hall. The application for Jordan is very landscape based, is not associated with any tenant space, and that's the question. The yoga studio has potentially a bar user. I don't believe any lease has been signed there yet. And the reason that we're talking to Jordan about that is because they would desire to use the patio that is outside of the yoga studio. So as I mentioned, what's that?
It's owned by us.
It's owned by OCED, I believe. So because that use is very different, we had a yoga studio there and they had a rocking chair on that space, not a bar serving alcohol and close proximity to the public right away and all those things. We just need to really understand or like what's allowed, who controls it, and what can happen on that space. So that's totally separate from sign and facade grant. And that's actually an IDA action to sort that out because the IDA owns that property.
So I guess the question is, are we comfortable moving ahead with the coffee shop or making the coffee shop wait until we ask Jordan for a plan?
Can I ask the question? I apologize for the commentary.
It's okay.
In the way that the program currently works, nothing would prohibit anyone from coming back and doing this on a tenant by tenant basis and getting $10,000 for each tenant in the whole building, right?
The tenants would be buying it.
If the tenants are buying.
Yeah, it would be Jordan.
I don't believe there's anything, yeah, but there's not more than one. Like,
We don't have a limit on properties.
We don't, nothing in the current program says you can't do that, like one tenant per property. Doesn't mean that it isn't something that was contemplated, but right now, there's nothing in the program that would limit that.
I still feel like it makes sense to hold off. Talk about a plan amongst ourselves, talk about a plan, big picture for that property with Jordan. DRI input aside, which would be great to have an update on that front either way by the next time we convene as a board, but it's still, I think maybe I'm thinking about it from a planning standpoint, but it just seems like we're looking through a hole this big, trying to look at the big picture of that property, fully supportive of the development of it, but it's still, there's so much more that we're not contemplating with this specific application.
We're not the design group for the village.
No, we're not.
We're the economic development group, and while I worry that we're putting the weight of Packett's Landing and what we were concerned about the future of that facade on the canal side or even on the other side on the Winter Swan. And I don't know is that, you know, if we want to pause the program or push for a plan from the property owner, are we putting too, I don't know.
There's no way around,
Swans.
our delay's not gonna be great for the folks at the Swan, totally, I'm
We have
sensitive to that.
scrambled for other businesses to get their improvements done on their deadline in the past. Let's talk about B-side, you know? They were in here the night before the to get their grant, you know,
Yeah.
before the building was getting demolished, or the front side was getting taken out. I don't know, I feel,
The stewards of that grant, of the funds to be granted is, I'm just trying to think of what's the smartest way.
I mean, certainly the property owner would be disincentivized to allow certain renovations to go forward and then not have future renovations aligned with the first one. Right? That wouldn't make sense. That would make their building more attractive for future. And it's, because Leslie, I thought that was a thoughtful point about, are we mixing up the planning and aesthetic and exterior concerns? What's the economic benefit to be derived by the individual business who is making the request?
we wouldn't think twice about it if
In
he
any other
was
business.
making any changes on the front, on, you know, the side that we see from right here. It's because he's changing the canal side of it, adding additional windows, which we all want. We're suddenly concerned about how will this trickle down.
Well, and say no future work happens on the back side of this building facing the canal for 4 years. Would this work being done in this calendar year be an improvement to the building on its own? I think it would.
Sure.
I think I'm talking myself into it there, but that's where I'm leveling.
Well, I will support approving this grant application, and but just with the great discussion that we've had of the potential issues that we may be dealing with in the future, and the need for us as a board to kind of consolidate our interest in what is going on there. So the discussion is good, and it's a continuing discussion we should have both with Jordan Morgenstern and our own board and the future of our facade program. You know, do we want to limit properties to only so many dollars or so many actions, you know, that have tenants, those kind of things. We've talked about a lot of stuff that I think is good. So, but all that being said, I would be willing to go along with this particular one. Wouldn't even condition it, just to approve it and know that this is something that we're going to have to be visiting in the future.
And I think our director can send a message to the property owner that we're looking for a broader view of what he's got planned for that, and think hard about it as he looks to fill additional spaces.
Yeah, and honestly, next time it comes around, maybe I'm not going to be so favorable when that knocks on the door, can I have $10,000? And then another knock on the door, can I have $10,000? This one is, you know, we're under his timeline to make sure that he can get open and all that. But, you know, for the future, if that message can get conveyed to the property owner, this isn't just going to be slam dunks from everybody that comes in with their hand out.
Understood. And to that point, like I said, we got a different application that it was clear not a slam dunk, and we put that one on pause.
He's coming in next month to talk to us about something else?
No,
Okay.
he's not. Brian Mayhew is coming in
Oh,
next
okay,
month.
sorry.
We are going to do a tour as soon as the weather breaks of Jordan's other property, and maybe that's what we were thinking about. We're going to see him again soon.
I would like to do that.
So Leslie, that was your motion.
That was your
I'll
motion
second
to
that.
approve, and Donna has seconded. Any further discussion? You're looking very pensive.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye.
One opposed.
One opposed, and Rob opposed. Okay. Moving on to the auditor renewal proposal.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have any new business? None? We need to schedule, we need to go to executive session.
We are entering executive session to discuss the financial information of a third party, and so we'll enter executive session for that.
All in favor?